All right. So this is Sean and Darren, the owners of Fogbuster, and we are going to talk about their fabulous coffee. I have been able to try it, and I love it. So thank you for joining me, guys.
Thanks for coming over here to.
And when we start our business, we always approach coffee as a food. So this falls right in perfectly.
Well, it is. I mean, I guess anything we put in our bodies is consumable
Yes.
and food. And I always say healthy starts from the inside out.
Yep.
So
Exactly.
why not start with our morning coffee?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, how do you source your beans? Because I know that you guys have very special relationship with the farmers you work with.
Yep.
Mhm.
Do you want me to start?
Go ahead. You can talk about way back.
God, well, the most important thing is that we're 100% fair trade coffee. We, many years ago.
And 100% organic.
And 100% organic. But we fell into fair trade because we were at a point where even the best coffees were becoming harder and harder to find. And it was because the market was dropping out at the time. We're talking mid-90s. And we were talking to one of our people that goes in country, and he said that it's unprofitable to pick the coffee. But he said there's a way to support the farmers more by paying fair trade prices. That gives them a stable economy, and then that helps the farms stay in place. There was a Guatemalan that we were getting for our Fogbuster, and the farm just shut down. It was not profitable for them to pick it. Yeah. So that was really the relationship that we started with purchasing only fair trade coffee. It guaranteed that the farms would stay in. It's a win-win for us because we're paying the person who does the hardest work the most money in this scheme, and then the other end of it too is it guarantees that the good coffee will be there for future, for
And they can
future.
support their families, and that sort of started. We had been to Central and South America, and that sort of started the whole process for us to seek out farms that were supported through cooperatives. And so that drove us 100% to fair trade, because by visiting the small farms who we have relationships with, one thing I always ask or have is, does fair trade really help you? When I hear it from the farmers, and they say, yeah, they can support their family, they can put the kids to school. Other farmers saying they can send their kids to other countries for education, helps buy books, it puts food on the table, where before they're just getting by if it's not fair trade. And fair trade and organic go well together because organic supports the environment, takes care of the environment.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a full spectrum, full circle, of taking care of the environment and the families.
I found it
Farm.
fascinating that when I took the tour here, that you guys were telling me because you air roast your beans, and that it's an amazing technique and process, but it's down to 1% of people in the world. Like,
Yeah.
why so
Yeah.
few people?
Because the technology hasn't always been there. The person who invented the air roaster was a man named Michael Sivitz, and he really started in about 72 producing these machines. He was an engineer.
And he's been in the coffee world since the 40s.
Yeah, he
wow.
was in on freeze drying coffee. He was in on the first methyl chloride decaffeinating processes and stuff. So he's a real guru, and you can find a lot of writing about him out there. But he passed away. He had a son whose name was Kim, who was going to take over the business, and Kim ended up passing away before him. So when Sivitz died at like 95, yeah, he was running the business up till the end. Very sharp man. But with his death came the death of a lot of the support for these machines, the manufacturing of these machines, getting parts for these machines.
The education. I mean, you can find him out there debating the better way to roast coffee between him and drum roasting, pioneers or gurus in the industry, and they would go back debate it, and
It's a hot topic in the coffee industry because people are the easiest way to describe it is we control the temperature of the air in our roasting chamber, and by that every bean gets the exact same temperature. And as a cooking guru, as you know, controlling the temperature is consistency, and consistency is replicable and easier to, what I'm saying? It's easier for me to control.
Also the flavor. Like
And
if,
the
if
flavor.
everything's cooked at different temperatures, or you have a hot spot in your pot, or
Yes,
something,
exactly.
things come out in a
you
different
lose that
way.
control.
Yep.
And that's why the best analogy, we when we first started our company, we drum roasted, and then once we discovered this, and we actually went out to Corvallis, Oregon, and spent 3 or 4 days with Sivitz and got the whole tour, and we were done. were so blown away that we came back and found a way to get money, and it took us about a year to sorry, my phone's beeping. To purchase it, and then when we purchased it, it sat on the floor for a few months because we had to figure out how to get it installed. So it was a, self or you can call it whatever,
It was self-learning.
self-learning,
Self-taught.
labor of love,
What's funny about Civets is he was
sweat equity.
we have some of his handwritten manuals and they're incredible, and this is pre-computers, so he has these handwritten notes and he'll just use whiteout if he changes his idea, or he'll just cut and paste pages and
He's old
insert
I love
pictures.
that.
Yeah,
They're classic. His we have 3 of his manuals for 3 different machines, and they're all classic Civets. And he was a really set in his way guy, so when we were building the roaster ourselves, being hands-on guys, doing everything, putting on, we'd work our cafe till 9 and then spend from 9 until 3 in the morning building our roaster. It took us a couple months to do our first roaster, but I'd be like stuck, and I'd call him and I would be like, Mr. Civets, I don't understand. I can't get the stack into the afterburner. What's going on? He goes, if you don't know how to do it, you're the wrong person to be talking to. Click, and he would hang up. Or we would call him and we'd be like, oh, we keep the pilot light's not staying on, and I just don't understand. Is it a wind draft? Is it a pressure issue? Is it me? And he goes, it's the same thing. If you don't know how to do it, you're the wrong person to be doing it. Click. So
we'd also call him because the way we do roast our coffee, we go from extremely dark to light and everything in between. So we were always experimenting with. We used to do a double roast, 480 double we call it, where we would roast it up to a highest temperature possible, and then we put it back in for a few minutes and roast it again at that temperature. And when we had issues like for temperatures or whatever, same thing. We'd call him and be like, and he'd be like, you're doing it wrong, and hang up on us. Because he doesn't agree.
So he was a very big purist, and he wanted you guys
Yes,
to learn
and
on
he's an
your own.
engineer. Everything has a
Everything.
formula. Everything has, it's written down. Like if you look at his again, it's handwritten. If you didn't follow exactly how he said it should be done, then you're outside of his barrier, and it's wrong. So
He
So
was very
sometimes older is better
stickler.
when
He's
it
an
comes to
engineer.
technique. So
Yeah.
you guys said you tried drum roasting in the beginning. Did you guys
Beginning.
try any other techniques for your coffee?
no, I mean
No.
standard is pretty much drum roasting, and again, it's the first and it's the oldest, so people stay with that. Going back to your question is why more people don't do it. It's a totally different way of roasting, and we are one of the pioneers with him. Hence, I think at one point it went up to 4% of the world, and after he passed away, it's dropped back down to 1%. That air
It's
roast.
a labor of love, basically. Your coffee is a labor of love, just like food is.
Yeah, and to just say one more thing to step across the line, one thing me and Sean, I know I said we treat it as food, but one thing we did early on that no one was doing at the time, going back 30 years, is we would have one great roast. You asked about blends and stuff, so you asked about single origins. I almost asked.
We'll be talking about that a little
We'll be talking about
later.
that. Well, my whole point being is we looked at it as pairing different regions together to get certain flavors, depth, complexity, but we also would use different roasts, extremely different roasts, to get different flavors, like a strong with a smooth finish. So we really were trying to look at it from a cooking point of view too when we early started on, because we would have in our mind the flavor we were looking for, and then we would, like mad scientists, play around with the different roasts and levels until we got what we were looking for. Or if there was something in it that didn't taste right, like a little bit of a bad taste, we would try to single out where that was coming from and then change the roast or change the bean. So there's a lot of our recipes right now are just old ones that we've had for a long time that are successful. But
And quick question: did you ask why air roasting?
Yeah,
Sort of,
why
kinda.
did you guys eventually land on the air roasting? I mean, other than it being an older technique
There's
and
a
a new...
lot of reasons. Consistency is one. It's very much more consistent. The only way a flavor profile will change is if we change the bean itself, we change the origin, we change the blend, or we roast at a different temperature. But once we lock these in, these are recipes we've been developing for over 20 years now. Once we lock that in, it stays, and the change won't. And we get this all the time from anywhere in the world where they're like, I know, and people say this, I know that what I drank today is going to taste the same a month from now. And it's very consistent. Drum roasting, there's a lot of guesswork involved. And the best analogy is you roast it in a frying pan or you roast it in a popcorn popper. Very consistent. Or a frying pan, the beans will get burnt, etc. And that's the same
Popcorn.
thing in a frying pan. It'll
Yes.
get burnt, it'll come out bitter. Popcorn popper, all the kernels pop, and it's all very consistent. Just like a convection oven, a baker's not going to use a standard oven you use in your
Of
home.
course.
They're going to use a convection oven. That's what ours is, a convection roaster.
Consistency is key. Now stay
Key.
tuned for our second part of our blog next week.